Hi, everybody. My name is Joel Pitney. This is the Launch My Book interview series. Um, Today, we are going to be talking about how to build a successful career as a self-published author, especially when you're publishing multiple books. That's something that I've been very interested in. And my guest today is Heather Justesen. She also writes under the pen name Heather Tullis. Uh, and you can find out a lot about her. We're going to put links in the comments. And Heather and I met at
Author
the
Nation.
Author Nation conference in Las Vegas this last week, and I met a lot of people like Heather, who have been writing books for years, and they've written many, 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 many books. Heather Heather has written uh, what is it? 3 dozen books. Heather, is that true?
Somewhere in the upper 30s. Yeah.
Which is unbelievable to me. She focuses on sweet small town romance and cozy mysteries. Though I know you've also published in other genres as well.
Right.
Um, so one of the things that I learned from authors like Heather at the conference is that um, you got to be publishing a lot of books. You got to be hustling. You know, you maybe not be able to be as prolific as her and publish uh, 3 dozen books over your career, but you definitely don't want to just publish one if you really want to build that momentum that it takes to build a readership for your work and get the kind of return on investment that it really takes to build a successful writing career. So that's what I want to talk about today. Before we dive into the interview, I want to remind everybody, make sure to like and subscribe and comment on this video, because that helps us reach more authors and aspiring writers who want to learn more information from the people we interview. So anyway, Heather, welcome to the show. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm great.
Excellent. And so there's a lot that we have to talk about. Um, but I want to make sure first, how did you get into writing? I'm curious.
Um, I actually was just, I have a literature degree, my bachelor's degree, because I was not going to be a writer. And then, like 3 months after I finished my degree, I started writing because, of course, didn't surprise
Okay.
any of my family because apparently I'm not very self-aware, but it surprised me. So I actually was going through a really rough time and I was thinking about like what I would do if like my situation didn't work out and I had to make some changes. And that was the first thing that I started to write. And so I didn't have a computer at the time. I was writing by hand in a notebook. And then we moved and I lost the notebook. And I started another book because I was like, I'm going to find that notebook. So like a year and a half passed and I didn't find it. So I finally started writing it on the computer that we had bought. But I wrote for about 9 years before I got a contract because I was really, really bad when I started. Like people say really bad, but like I was really, really bad. But I really wanted to write. And so I studied writing and I shared it with friends who gave me feedback. And then I started going to conferences and I got an actual editor. And that like made all the difference having like an actual real editor look at it and give me
Oh,
specific.
interesting.
Yeah, like my writing improved dramatically. Like I when I sent her the second book, she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so much better than the first thing that you sent me." And that was like 7 or 8 years in to my writing journey. So good feedback is really, really helpful. And then
Mm.
I published at first with a small press. It was like a niche Christian market, and I didn't sell very many books. And
And were
then,
those fiction books?
yes,
Okay,
those were
great.
under Heather Justesen. So I put a couple out and then they rejected one. And I went back to one of my critique partners. Um, I used to drive 100 miles each direction every week to go to a critique group because I lived out in the middle of nowhere. And one of my
Wow.
partners was an editor for another small press. And she's like, it's good enough. You can self-publish it if you want to. And so I decided to do that. And I loved that. Um, I did do one more with a small press before I was like, okay, I'm done. But um, I, anyway, that's how I got into it
That's
and how I
great.
started self-publishing.
So,
So,
so when you decided to make that shift, from the small press traditional model to the self-publishing, what made you kind of not go back? What made you sort of say, "Hey, this is the path I want to take forward"?
um, Well, I wasn't making much money traditional publishing,
Okay.
because it was a really small market, and I wasn't making that much self-publishing either, but at least I had control. Like I could decide if I wanted to change my cover. I could rewrite the back cover copy if I needed to. I could try different promotional things, and I could tell if they worked because
Mm,
at this time, like this was 2011, I think. And so the Kindle was still pretty new. It had been out for a few years, but traditional publishing, it was really hard to be able to tell like if what you were doing was moving the needle at all. Like, so you would just kind of like try a bunch of different things and hope something stuck and this book's sold, but you couldn't
mm,
tell what was working. And so I really loved being able to like go right on to KDP and see, oh, I can tell that thing worked, or oh, I can tell that thing didn't work. Like I didn't sell any books when I did that. So either I need to try doing it different or I need to like not do that thing anymore. And
mm.
that was really useful for me. It actually made it less stressful, even though there's a lot of moving pieces to self-publishing, because I was focusing on the things that made sense to me and that were actually moving the needle instead of just trying to do everything that my publisher wanted me to do. And I actually don't like book signings in regular bookstores. It gives me major anxiety.
Yeah.
So, like I can do them at small events, but like sitting in a bookstore for hours was terrible. And I did a lot of that for my publisher, and that was very stressful for me. So this works a lot better for me. I'd rather have other forms of
So
interaction with readers.
that's interesting. I mean, that's I think that's probably an often underlooked or overlooked, sorry, benefit of self-publishing is that you can get real-time sales data. Not only do you have control over your cover and all that kind of stuff, but you've you know exactly, or at least you have a much better sense of where your sales are coming from and whether a certain promotion or a certain effort led to something, right?
Right,
That's interesting. So, in terms of on the self-publishing side, right? Self-publishing can be very complicated, and I assume you move from traditional publishing where all you need to do is just follow their lead. They take care of everything for that for the most part on the production side. Um,
right.
to self-publishing, what is the system you've developed over the years? How do you've published 30,
Something.
34-ish books. Um, how do you go about getting your books edited and cover design and all that kind of stuff? Do you do a lot of that yourself? Do you have trusted people you work with? How have you figured out that system?
I have done a lot of my covers myself. I've been working with 100 covers lately to
Okay.
redesign a lot of my covers. Um, and that's been really nice. It's slower, which is frustrating for my I want it right now thing,
Yeah.
but they're really good covers and they're really excellent to work with. And so that's that's the trade-off, but I'm not like in a big rush that I have to have it right away because I'm just recovering them, so it's all good. Um, but I actually had put out the word, oh, it's been years now, 7, 8 years ago to my my fan page on Facebook and
Mm,
said, "Hey, I'm looking for some editors. Does anyone want to help me out?" And I had a bunch of people volunteer. And I have a stable of probably 7 or 8 editors. They don't always have time when I need something edited, but usually 4 to 5 of them will like jump in and help me, and they give really excellent feedback. And it's funny how 5 different people will pick up so many different errors in that document. Like
mm.
some of them they'll all notice, but some of them, like everyone notices things nobody else notices. And so that's worked out really well for me. Um, yeah.
That's great. And so, how often do you publish a new book generally?
Um, Generally, I do a couple, 2 to 3 a year.
Okay.
It's been slower the last couple of years. Um, Numerous reasons, renovations, new job, finished my MFA, blah, blah, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to like jump back in and get some books out. I've got a bunch that are like not quite finished that I'm going to try and get done and put out sooner. So.
Well, so
Um,
I'd love to hear a little bit about, so again, kind of like I was talking about up front, the benefits of publishing multiple books frequently, and I also know you tend to write things in series as well. How has that helped you, and how have you seen your readership grow over the years, writing in that way?
well, if you want people to continue to be interested in that series, then it helps if you don't wait too long between new books because they're still like they still remember that feeling, that excitement that they had when they like read the last one.
Right.
Um, so usually no more than 6 months for sure. Less time between books in a series is better. I don't think that that like really quick every 2 weeks thing is really necessary as much anymore as it once was because the whole market has shifted. So, I mean, that can still be effective if that's who you are, but I wouldn't stress about that if were a new writer. I would just work on being consistent. Um, she says after not having put anything out for a while. But it really makes a difference if you're reasonably consistent on your income too, because then you get more little bumps in sales, and so you have a more steady income. Um, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of market out there that you don't pick up when you first put out a book. Um, so I always tell myself, if that author can sell 1 million copies of her book in English, then I can sell more than, 50,000 copies of this book. There's
Hmm.
plenty of readers still out there that want the kind of thing I'm writing. So
Hmm.
there's always like the more of your like old books that you have to promote, like that can help a lot in between releases too. So but I
So that means, so for example, if you wrote, you published one book and then maybe you were a little behind and you didn't get to publish a book for 9 or 10 months. In that period, you're going to promote your new title, but then you'll also be promoting your old books as well. Are you always actively doing that, or do you only promote one book at a time?
I usually promote first in series, and I don't put any real money behind them until I have at least three in my series,
Mm,
because that's the way you get your metrics to work out so that you don't lose money. Um, in the past, I've always done like the first in series free, and then before the pandemic, I would actually get like those newsletters, like Free Booksy and stuff. I would pay like $60 to $80. I'd put the first free, and then I would make a nice chunk of cash over the next 6 to 8 weeks from that series. And then like the next month I
mm,
would pick a different book in a
mm.
different series. But everything kind of changed during the pandemic. I have friends who
Okay.
still use those services, but for me, I have not. I've tried them several times since then, and I haven't had a lot of luck. So I need to go to more. I'm working on like more direct ads, like Facebook ads
Mm,
and stuff.
mhm.
Um, but and I've talked to other authors and like author coaches, and they agree. Like once you get 3 books out, then the ad like the metrics work better. So you may lose money on the first book, but you're selling enough on the later books in the series that you still at least break even or make money. And
Okay.
there are lots of different reasons to promote. Like I had a friend who did a KU days for her book so that she could get um, like reviews, and she did a little bit of ads and stuff for that, and that makes perfect sense to me. Um, if that's what you're looking for. But like for me, I'm focused more usually on generating sales. So, but
Well,
there are
that's
lots of
that.
different.
No, that's great. That's a very cool rule of thumb, and a lot of people I work with don't necessarily know that, especially if they're just starting out. That I've heard many people say it takes 3 books that sell themselves to start making a profit, um,
Mhm.
independent of the series model or not. And it's that makes sense to me that you don't want to start you don't want to start spending money or time marketing a book until you've got 3 in the series. Is that basically the equation you work with?
Yeah, I might put a
Interesting.
little bit in when I release a new book, like the first or the second book, but I don't like really put a lot of money in until the third one is ready
Hmm.
to launch because that's where it works. So.
Do you have any sense of read through percentages? I mean, can you tell? I know that Amazon always keeps their data proprietary, but do you have a sense of if you can get, you know, 500 people to read the first book, many of those 500 are going to read the second, and then how many of those are going to read the third?
I use scribe count. And before that, I used reader links. And before that, I used one of the other ones. I've used them all basically, and they're all really good. But I switched to scribe count when I went white again because they're the only ones that I'm currently aware of that like automatically upload the data from all the different sites that I sell at.
Hmm.
But so you can actually do a series. Um, like look at the series and see if I sell this many of this one, what percentage all the way through the series and see your series read through. Or there's like spreadsheets out there that you can like put that in if you're not using one of those services. But I would never do it for under 3 months worth of data because especially if you have a long series, like my DeCarlo Bride series has 7 books. And
Hmm.
so it takes a while for some people to get all the way through. And so if I
Right.
do a short one, like right after a promo, then I won't be able to tell how many books are actually selling through because it takes them a while to get to book 7.
Hmm.
So, but like that series has a really, really high read through. Some of my others are like 40 to 50%. They get all the way through the series, but that one is like I've given away tons and tons of book one, like 900,000 copies over the last 10 years. Um, so I usually count it from book two. If I can get them to buy book two, I have about a 75 to 80% read through of the 7 book series.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's a testament to your writing.
So
Yeah,
um,
that's amazing.
th- that's an important thing to know metrics. Like if you're doing ads, like, is this working? Am I making the money? Is the whole series coming up? So,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. So, let's see here. What have you found? All the things you've done on the marketing side, what have you found to be the most valuable to the success of you as a writer of all the things you've done?
Um, Marketing, still putting the first in series free seems to work best for me.
Okay.
Um, just because it brings a lot of new readers in. It's not nearly as effective as it used to be, but it still seems to move the needle faster. Um, or if I have ads, if I make the first one at least cheaper to like get people introduced to the series,
Hmm.
then that helps a lot. I'm still playing around with ads and like TikTok and Reels and all that stuff. So we'll see what I would say in a year might be different, but
Interesting. Okay. Um, and in terms, what have you found? What's sort of an area of promise that you haven't explored yet, or maybe you're just starting to experiment with that you feel has a lot of potential?
I am playing with direct sales and I really want to do a Kickstarter. We had a book, I had a group of friends, we got together and started a series in Sugar Creek. We made up a town in Vermont and we did like Christmas books and we did Kickstarter like book boxes. And that was a lot of fun. Um, that was like 2 years ago. So I'd like to try doing maybe a special edition and just do one by myself and see how that goes. That gives you more opportunities to connect with readers and create like relationships and to like converse with them about like what kind of stuff they're interested in and what they'd like to get in a box and
Hmm.
also give me stuff to talk to my newsletter group about like what kind of things they would want if they were going to buy a box and
Hmm.
so that I can like interact with them more. Back when I first started writing under Heather Tullis, which I did not tell anybody I was Heather Tullis. I mean, I didn't like it wasn't a big deep dark secret, but I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post it on Facebook. I didn't do ads. I just launched it and then played with well, I did a little bit of ads and stuff. I was trying to see what would happen. But so nobody, I didn't like none of my Heather Justesen stuff came over and helped that series at all. But that was 2013, which is a whole different world of publishing
Right.
back then. And so I lost my train of thought. Oh, so I had a really active Facebook like fan page back then. Like people would talk and stuff, but now Facebook because their metrics have changed so much, it's doesn't like nobody sees it. So um I'm gonna try some like fan groups and see what different things we can do. So, and
Oh,
I
that's
think
cool.
that's part of the key is like continuing to try because I see other authors who are in my genre or who in other genres that like different things work for different people. And part of that's personality and part of that's like the genre. Some people's genres are like specific readers are in different locations or whatever. And so like try different things. If what you're doing isn't working and you've tried it seriously for a few months, then try something else and see if it works
Hmm.
better for you. So,
That's great advice. I love that because there's a lot of people who claim to kind of have the solution out there, right?
right,
But uh, so people will try it and they're like, it doesn't work. They're like, oh, it doesn't work. But everybody's calculus is different, right?
right. Even if they're like the same type of book in the same genre, sometimes it just doesn't work the same for one book as the other. And part of that could be like the author's personality, and some of it might just be sheer dumb luck. Like there's just
Hmm.
sometimes no way to know. So,
I'm curious what you do for social media. My company, we do all kinds of stuff on the promotional side for people, and we have found that we love doing social media on nonfiction books, and we've gotten pretty good at that. We've never gotten very good at generating consistent content around fiction books on social. And I'm curious, about your experience there.
Um, I also struggle with social media for fiction.
Hmm.
I think it's a lot easier to like look at this fiction book. Hey, here's what this fiction book's about, and like create content for it, than it is to do it for nonfiction or for fiction. But
Right. Yeah.
I see a lot of people, um, especially TikTok, can be really excellent for some people if you can get the right little portion of your story to like post about that will like intrigue the reader. Um, or like I have one friend, Cindy Gunderson, she actually like pretends like she's the character and she's telling the story to people and she's fantastic. And I
Hmm.
tried that and I flopped completely because she's so much better at that specific skill set than I am. But so I'm trying to do some other different things with Reels and TikTok and stuff to try to work that out, but I haven't had tons of luck with social media, especially the last few years. So trying new things this year.
Interesting. No, I mean, it requires a lot more creativity, I think. Um,
And consistency, and I struggle
mhm,
with consistency because it's something that has to be done all the time.
mhm,
So, but yeah,
mhm.
a lot of creativity.
Do you find, I mean, do you feel like you could just not do any social media and just, kind of focus on ads and the other things you do and it wouldn't affect you that much? Or do you feel like even if you're not doing it super well, it's good to have that social media presence?
Um, I think you should at least have like the pages, even
Hmm.
if you're not super active, just so that people can find you. And also so that somebody else doesn't like we were talking one of the classes at Author Nation, I can't remember the guy that was with Sound Booth Theater that they had the rock climber, I can't remember what his name was. Anyway, he talked about how he got the Reddit page for his book series just so that nobody else could take it. So he wouldn't have to worry about what they were doing with it. And then the next thing he knew, there were like a bunch of people on there like talking about his book series. And he wasn't part of the discussion. He didn't have to do any of that. But I think anyway, tangent. I think that having a presence so that people can find you is super useful. And making sure that you have a contact me on your website. Please, please, please have a contact me on your website because it's so hard sometimes to find people. Like I was working with an awards group and we had people whose books were nominated for the award and then we would like try to track them down and there was no way to contact them on their website on through their social media. Like we couldn't like track them down and so we ended up having to pass on
Mm,
like putting them into the awards because we couldn't reach them. And
mm.
so like have some way. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say
Do
on
you
that.
do you find
So,
that a lot of your readers reach out to you on the contact me page? You have people reaching out to you?
mostly they do it through Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
But occasionally I'll have
Mm,
someone like drop me a line on the contact me, but
mm.
I also have my email addresses at the backs of like all my books and everywhere. So a lot of times they just pop it into there after they read the book or whatever. So,
Um, that's great. Just curious, I want to ask you a bunch of stuff about your books, but just before we move into that, um, what would one piece of advice for someone who's just getting started, the next Heather Justesen out there who's just beginning their author journey? What's a piece of advice you would give to them?
don't give up because almost nobody, like 0.001% of the population of authors goes gangbusters on the first book. Um, just keep going. You will find your audience if you're putting out good content and you're like reaching out and helping people find your book. Um, I had a friend once tell me that, well, don't you think the cream just rises to the top? And no, no, it doesn't. It doesn't matter how good your book is if you're not doing marketing so that people can find it. There's a lot of books out there. It'll get lost if you don't market. But like, don't give up. Keep trying. There are lots of ways to reach people. Some of them do not cost very much money. So keep writing and do the thing you love. And if you don't love it, stop doing it. If you hate Facebook, stop Facebooking. If you don't like doing TikTok, don't do TikTok. You know, so because it's a lot of work and it's exhausting to do stuff you don't like.
Love it. That's great advice, Heather. So I want to shift gears. I want to talk a little bit about your books. Curious. I don't know if there's an answer to this question, but what of all the series you've written, what is the one you're most proud of?
Um, well, I'll always really be like I love my DeCarlo Bride series. Um, it was the series that I was like, I had just been started my culinary series, which I also completely adore. But I was like, I'm not going to write another book. I need to focus on this other series because it's actually making me some money. And then I couldn't not write the series. Like once the idea came to my head, I couldn't not write it. And it's the one that changed my life because it took off and we moved across the country because of the series and I've like met so many readers mostly online because of it and I've had so many doors opened because I had that one series that did well and um I look at that and I'm like that that series worked so well. What can I do to like do that thing again? And none of my other series since then have performed nearly as well. But I know that I have it in me because I did it that time. And so I'm anyway, it was like the focus of my life basically for a couple of years and I really love that. So
Cool. Can you tell, I mean, for people who have no idea about your books, can you tell us a little bit about the series? What's the general?
in the opening scene of the first book, the girl walks in with her sister into the reading of her father's will, which I know is cliche, but it works for the series. And she finds four other women. She finds out that they're all her half sisters from four other like mothers, and they grew up in different parts of the country. They're really different women. The dad owned a hotel chain, and he was opening this new one in the Colorado Rockies, and he forces all the women to go open the chain together and like live in the same house for that first year, and so that they can like get to know each other. And so they had like all these personality conflicts, and they all fell in love because he like picked out men for them, which the women didn't know about. And so anyway, there's suspense in all the books, mystery and suspense, and then all these fun like relationship things going on. So,
That's very
but
cool. It sounds that sounds very compelling.
yeah,
And um, for anybody who's interested in Heather's books, you can go to heathersbooks.com. That's her
yeah,
Shopify website where you can buy direct from you, right? You don't even have to go through
right,
Amazon or anybody. That's great.
right.
You can also look her up on Amazon, but I'm sure it would be better for her if you went to her website. So heathersbooks.com. Um, and what's the series that you are currently actively promoting? What's about to come out with?
Um, I have a few books left in my shelter series, which is
Okay.
a group of women who met in a women's shelter, and then they were at a class on like creating a small business, and the guy like threw out this lotto ticket, and they ended up winning the lotto, and so they bought a building, and they opened a little store where they have like their handcrafted items.
Hmm.
And so anyway, they're also suspense romances, and so I'm finishing that series. I have one more culinary that's in the pipeline. I have more ideas for DeCarlo Brides. Um, I have a bunch of different things that I've worked on and stuff over the time, and then I have like a Christmas series that I've been working on that I need to get back and finish up the rest of the books in that series. So
That's great. You
yeah.
are you are you are not short of any ideas. It doesn't sound like.
A little ADHD with my writing too. So
Well, it's kind of I find when I'm writing, I find that is when I'm the most productively distracted, and it always helps me if I have multiple writing projects, so that if I'm going to procrastinate from one, I can work on the other one.
right.
I don't know if that works for you. Um, awesome. So again, heathersbooks.com is where you can find everything about Heather. You publish books under the name Heather Justesen and books under the name Heather Tullis. Is that right?
Yeah. So my first books were Heather Justesen and my culinary mysteries. And then when I started to Carla Brides, I opened up Heather Tullis, and I've been mostly publishing under there since. So
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so heathersbooks.com, that's the place to learn more. You can also find her on Amazon. Heather, is there anything else you want to share with us before we wrap it up?
Um, I don't think there's anything specific. I don't have any like specific releases or anything coming up soon, but
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure that everybody has the links to everything all about you so they can come and find your books. Um, and this has been really great. It's so cool to get actual battle tested advice from someone who's been doing this for so long, and has really made some significant progress in their writing career. So I'm sure that people are going to really, really benefit from everything you've shared with us.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.